One more joined. How do you show everyone? Can't unmute. Wait, how do you show everyone? Change layout, tiled. There we go. Hello.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hi.
We got some.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Let's wait until people get here, I guess.
Well,
go on mute right now.
cancel.
Or maybe I should talk until people get in.
Yeah, I think another 5 minutes or so. I keep getting notifications to admit entry, so.
Okay.
How do you? This isn't everyone. How do you show everyone?
Yeah, we found that the mute is the best option, but if it's unmute, you can wait for someone.
You can't show everyone.
Speak. It's the goal here is everyone talk if they want, but it's just we expect some people. It will be hard if they're all on unmute. Hello. 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 We're just waiting for some people to join. I think we can use chat, so we're not bored. Where are everyone? Moscow. Over here.
Can't hear anybody.
We just on mute. We're waiting for some people to join. Check. How's the sound?
There's a lot more.
So we will take, I think, 1, maybe 2 hours to just chat, talk, drink, and then we're going to proceed to I think 2 live sets from August. So it's going to be fun. One night. Or fun morning for many people. I hope everyone will join. We're just waiting for we want to give it like 10 minutes. So as much people as possible join. So that the goal for this meetup is for the first time see everyone and talk with everyone and give opportunity to everyone who willing to just talk about what we're trying to build here, say hi. I think it was some crazy times past 3 months for everyone, and we went through some interesting times as individually, as professionally. I'm sure everyone. So it's an interesting moment to come back. I mean, it's not over yet, but I guess some kind of checkpoint. Please use chat to ask your questions, and I'm thinking the best way to talk is someone raise a question in chat and we just start one on one, or I think that's the best because this is super convenient, but we want to avoid um, everyone talking at the same time. We were testing this, then it happens, it's like a trigger.
I think, Vadik, we're gonna start answering some questions first, maybe, because we got some questions in the sync, and quite some people also asked these questions through the doc, Google Doc that we shared.
Yes. So before we go,
Yeah, maybe we can drop the link in the chat just so everyone can access it.
All right, sure.
Yes.
this is a real say this is a real thing. It would be cool to do this every week. Let's see. That's definitely an amazing experiment. But it feels good to see everyone. It's not like one-way conversation. It's amazing. Right, maybe we should start. So let's go. Just so we once again thank everyone for being here. 3 years ago, we sent this postcard to all users, physical postcard, and it said, basically see you in 3 years in London, and it will be physical user meetup, and we wanted this record label Oblast to play, and a lot of things happened in the past 3 years. This pandemic happens, and of course things shifted around. We decided we should still do user meetup and make it so everyone can join, without us flying to London immediately. And once again, after this, don't go away. There will be some music for a couple of hours live. It will be cool. We'll start with questions from the doc. So the first question is Oli B. Is there Oli B in the chat?
Hey.
Hello. The first question from Oli B. How important is the internet and www single blocks existence? I'll start real quick. Definitely important, but it feels like the internet is taken away sometimes. You know this feeling when you only visit like 3 channels, like telling you that Instagram, Reddit, or YouTube, and there's no internet. So we use it for communication, but everything else is kind of gone. We talked a lot about the idea that ARC, for example, can be a vehicle that hosts some kind of mesh network, and they connect with each other, creating its own internet. That's far away in the future. Right now, we definitely depend on this. There's no, almost like right the Amazon servers, everything. This Google Doc and YouTube and Twitch, we depend on those services because there's no way we can build it ourselves. But eventually, the idea, of course, long term, to have it independent. That's the ambition, that's the dream. What do you think, Oli? What do you think about it?
I guess the reason I was asking the question initially was that I guess Locke's roots are in physical, items of clothing, and then looking to the future at Arc. It's very physical, but also the infrastructure very much relies on the internet in order to function. I just thought that was an interesting sort of paradox.
For sure, it's like we want to kind of get away, right? Not get away, but build our own, and we depend so much on the old. It's a paradox. I'd say to that is not to quote, but to quote Slavoj Žižek, he said, I guess it's the only truth. The only way to change the system is to get in and try to change it inside, almost like help it, advance it. There's no way to change it with anarchy and just pure revolution. It's extremely hard. The cause of every revolution not necessarily good sometimes. So I guess our approach is to have the revolution, but we still have to embed it into the system. Yes, before people feel free to jump in if you have comments. This is really meant to be just a fireside chat and stuff.
So yeah, so on that front about building something new, like what have you guys been following like decentralization at all, like that whole like IPFS movement, or are you guys kind of thinking about building something new from scratch? Because like I work in crypto, but I see it's kind of not really ready for production for a while. Like for mass adoption, I mean.
Agree. That's the sentiment we got as well. It's almost crypto is almost the same way, of course, different scale, where the interface is brand new, but the behind the scenes is old. You still have to use Mastercard, sometimes to cash out or put money in. You still have to use Amazon service. You still have to use the infrastructure. It's just changed from dollar or euro to crypto, which is a big advancement, but it still rely on everything old. So that's the only reason why we didn't go into crypto. And people ask, why can't we subscribe with Bitcoin, and why don't you issue your own coin, your own currency? And that's the reason. You change the interface, but behind the scenes still same bank. You still have the same bank.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, so a lot of apps, like I don't know if you've seen it, but like Dharma or Foundation, like they're two like projects that are a little bit more focused on like everyday people using crypto, but still like you're onboarding or you're purchasing with your Apple Card, right? Like a full transformative revolution where like DAI becomes the default is so far away that it's like I don't know if it's ever actually going to happen until like, you eventually onboard. Like all the banks are built off of built on top of decentralization, decentralized tech, and all that stuff, and then maybe one day it'll like reach adoption. But I mean, for me, like the projects I'm working on, some of them we want to like when you remove the whole like crypto wallet like mentality and like or the whole like connection experience, and you follow on like the traditional, I mean, like Web 2 tags like sign in with Apple or Google Wallet, right? But then all behind the scenes is all like crypto powered. We use hide all that stuff. I think it's the best way of like bridging that gap between like the Web 2 world, but better, right? And then slowly replacing each like pillar of finance, of communities, on top of like, I mean, for instance, like Twitter's Blue Sky project. I mean, they're going to be rebuilding it on top of decentralization, but it's still going to be Twitter at its whole. So like, I think like each pillar of like the infrastructure needs to be slowly built over, and then eventually, once everything is, then maybe it'll reach adoption. But that's like, I mean, I've always thought crypto right now is like we're in the darknet levels. We're so far away from like we're I don't know maybe 10, 20 years away, but it's maybe at an accelerated pace. So maybe at 7 years we'll see like adoption, but who knows?
ideally, I see decentralization in a way that ideally, like again, this is most of take this with a grain of salt. It's brainstorm vibing, and ideally, I see decentralization. One of the community members build something, and we just use that, and we help you to build it further. We promote it. Say we switch to that thing completely. We find some kind of terms where we can work together long term, and that's how we're going to be like, yeah, we have our own thing. But I feel like us as lot, we're not going to do it. This is
Right.
very complex subject.
Yeah.
Complex subject, right?
Yeah, you had mentioned something very similar when you talked about the idea of like the community modules, how you find the best people for each thing and work together to build like a connection with each person who specializes in each like individual product or item, right? I think that's actually an interesting concept that you're like bridging, you're utilizing the community to the fullest of like their potential and like building up the community through the community, I guess. It's like, yeah.
Yep. It's in a way that modular system is attempt to get there, where we want to facilitate the platform, create guidelines together, and be stoic about the whole thing, and open up that all these plugins can come from other places. That's ideal. It's very ambitious, obviously, but that's ideal. Well, moving to the next question. So we covered that, and we can come back.
If I can add one last thing, sort of maybe as a follow-up question for everyone to think about, is what I'm curious about in regards to decentralization is I see there's a lot of infrastructural development going on. But what I'm curious about is on a humanistic level, if we are ready for that level of connectivity, where you sort of take away the central power, something that is actually, from childbirth on, sort of embedded in our society. If you sort of take that away and you replace it with a decentralized concept, how ready are we as humans to sort of fully embrace that? Or we will always be sort of longing for that centralized power that tells us, go left, go right. I'm not saying there's an answer for this right now, but I think it's an interesting topic to sort of keep in mind when talking about these directions.
It's interesting. I mean, I think for me, like thinking about the idea of like centralization, decentralization, but also like infrastructure as a whole, like we don't think about. I mean, depending on what you do. I mean, if you don't think about like UDP, TCP, the back end of the internet, right? You just know that it works. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if someone was like really, really particular about something, they'd want to use a certain protocol or not, right? But at the end of the day, like whether something's decentralized or centralized, all you see is the benefits behind it, not like the infrastructure itself. You just see that you're getting a better experience by using whatever it is. And I don't know if people would necessarily like be longing for like a decentralized or a centralized version of a certain platform, as long as the benefits are better than the previous. I mean, I personally think like don't talk about decentralization. Like just like show the benefits of this tech through your platform.
That's without, the point. Yeah, without like, because you talk about it, you almost add to that sci-fi intellectual conversation that almost unfortunately goes nowhere. Whereas like actually trying to implement pieces using community, work on those relationships with people, because that's to me the key. Even if technology is there, even if we build, there's a utility and purpose, all that stuff, it still comes to relationships, because
and it's also the same in the offline world. Like it's highly centralized, and we don't even think about how it works. It's like if you take the logistics and how things are shipped, things like this, it's the same story. We'll see how.
Right, next one. Joe, I think it's for you.
Cool. Next question's from
Okay.
Anton Vasin. Are you here?
Yeah, hi.
What's up, Anton? Um,
Good.
so I'm just gonna read your question. Here it says, what's Lot's relation to living space and environment? Arc answers this question in one way, and it's interesting. Are there any other modes of being in physical space that's on your mind? And how environment for post-city civilization looks like? I think what Arc answers to this relation between living space and environment really isn't kind of a permanent proposition, as in it offers an alternative to the way that we currently relate to the contracts of space and environment in suburbs, rural, and city areas. But as an offset, I don't personally think that anyone. We're proposing that everyone kind of lives this one-man bunker as a permanent setup. But I think whatever relationship that we're trying to put forth with ARC as a space where you are relating with yourself first is something that can port over into other modes of living, whether it be mobile or in permanent kind of conventional city structures. How environment for post-city civilization looks like, I think, is a very interesting question, because I think this also relates to Ollie's first question: how important is the internet to Lot's existence? And I think that question segues into this a little bit, in the sense that the internet has allowed for people to, especially in the epidemic that we're all experiencing globally, that we suddenly realize on a very massive global scale that you don't have to be, you don't have to live the conventions of what cities program you to live, like going to work 9 to 5 and then coming back home, and then all this commute time is something that you sit in a car, listen to music, and listen to podcasts. And I think a lot of people in these times of working from home and finding that the internet is this network that you can rely on that makes you space independent. And so I think that really is the bottom line of how I feel our relation with space and environment will continue to progress in the time to come, where people are continually growing progressively independent while being more and more space independent, allowing them to live anywhere, whether it's in a mobile home or a permanent structure. I think Airbnb in the past kind of upsetting this idea that ownership of a home is something that you have to have in order to feel like you belong somewhere is kind of another building block that we're kind of extrapolating from.
It's interesting, it almost follow up in the decentralization conversation, and what Matthias said about society being centered not because of corporations but mentally. We driven by cities, schools, colleges, like one measure of success, one measure of being, and in a way, ARC allow you to be outside of that, and again, not escape it, but just have another option without not living in cities necessarily, not go to the regular world. And I see this as an attempt of decentralization. Like we go places, being together. It's almost reverse of how it's right now. We have to go to the city. We have to go to the office. We have to be there.
Yeah, I feel like to that point of decentralization, this idea of your home being this location independent structure of existence will force whatever centralized hubs of grocery stores or postal services to further dissipate into something that is much less like something that you need to move to a city metropolis center to be doing. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how, as more and more people adopt a lifestyle that is away from this system of city dense metropolises, how that will force, or not force, but rather how that will help change the way that we're programmed to think about city layouts.
Well, on the idea of like that, the move away from centralization, it's interesting for me because like I'm actually so I'm based in Berlin right now as a U.S. citizen. I'm actually planning on moving back to the States, and what's interesting is because I feel like I don't have a home. Because I know like I'm on a freelance visa right now, so at any time I have certain restrictions of what I can do here, but also Germany's not designed for freelance work at all as a country in terms of its like social economic status, social economic benefits, and all that stuff and insurance. And the goal was to move back and like have a dedicated space because like I have a big record collection, something I'm not going to get rid of. Like despite like material possessions not being super attached to it, right? Like I've got speakers and records and stuff that I love. Like that, wherever that is I feel like a place I can like have a home. And the idea is that having a singular place, whether it be like a mobile, like a stationary place, or maybe even like a mobile thing. Like I mean, for instance, like having all that stuff in an art, right? That you have it in one place and you know it can always be there, but also being able to just go and leave. It's like I mean, I don't want to live in the States for the rest of my life, but I know I want to like have something to always go back to, like kind of like an HQ that's always there, and knowing that wherever I am in the world, like the things I care about and like that forms my identity will be there. It's like when I moved here to Berlin, I put all my shit in a box and put it in my dad's house. You know, like I know he's gonna be there, but it's very different than knowing that you have a home to go back to.
You know, I was thinking this is good, very good point, because maybe even just little brainstorm here. You know, maybe even it's you're not completely saying, okay, no to city, no to apartment, no to house. It just makes it more humble. So you have, as you say, your HQ, and then that's your station, right? You have your stuff there, that's your temple. But then you have extension of that temple as arc that gives you guilt-free, shame-free freedom. So you don't have to be at home, you don't have to be at the vacation.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me of a tag that I saw on a grocery bag when I went grocery shopping the other night, and on this bag it said "Home is where you park it." So this idea, of an HQ being wherever you decide to park it is, I think, something that I mean, it's funny to see it on a grocery bag at a Ralph's in LA. It makes me very, very hopeful to see kind of what changes in people's mentalities that will also shift what they view as home and what they view as, I love the term you use, HQ.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I mean, like right now, like my next chapter is I'm trying to start a collective, like somewhere in Detroit, perhaps, just generally a creative space for anybody. I'm working on it, but like basically, like I know I need like 12,000 square feet for it, so absolutely massive. Yeah, exactly. It's actually called 49 Friends. But yeah, it's like
Keep us posted.
Yeah, for sure.
We will be all following. But I'm moving to the next
drop it in the chat.
Yes, please. I'm moving to the next question. So I just looked at time. So we're on the third question. Marion, you here?
Hey, I am. How are you?
Marion is a friend, a long-time supporter, and I'm guessing that's why the question. So I'm going to read it quickly. Just watch the Matrix trilogy. First movie is amazing. It sets up the language, narrative, something beautiful. Second, it's decent, extends the feeling. Third one didn't work for me. Basically, the question is how to not become that, of loss. How we ensure that we don't stuck in narrative, that loop, limbo, where we talk about the same stuff without kind of pushing it further, pushing it to the next. While the packages were there, it was very visible. This the speed and the process. Now those packages not there, it's hard to see the strategy, the mission, and therefore exchange energy with the collective. Right? That's definitely one of the most important questions right now, and absolutely feel you on this.
Yeah.
My thinking, I will let people talk, but my thinking is that it's, first, of course, this pandemic changed everything, but really between us guys, we're kind of grateful for this pandemic. I mean, respectful to all the victims and everything, because it allowed us to really reset a lot and move away from that rush of speeding and trying to send those packages to really reevaluate the team what wanted to do, put that lab thing on the side of the client work so people know what exists if needed. And most importantly, focus on something that will truly scale, which is mindset. And that's such a loud word, like we design a mindset, who we are to say this. And I think that's why it's taking time. We just want to really design, understand what is people get joy, like who we are, why we this in this meeting right now. It's not because of packages. It's not because of some uniform. We're here because of something else. We all feel it. What's that? And that's so hard to express. And we were thinking that maybe before we jump into physical packages again, we should first try to put this energy on some kind of software product, because it scales faster and it's not hardware, we can change it fast, we can update it fast and really tailor it to this group of people. I've been saying, the moment we build a tool on sync on the digital profile page that we all can use every day, that's the moment of win. The moment we can't go back to shipping packages, that's just back to packages, That's my view.
I mean, Marion, please, if you want to respond, of course, go ahead.
No, I'm here to listen. Yeah.
All right, cool. No, what I wanted to add, what Pradeep was saying about time, is like, I think the situation we're currently in right now should not be compared sort of with the time that we were in prior. So in that sense, time is sort of what I was going to say. It's like a different metric right now. Maybe the most easy comparison is when you take plants, the way they grow, right? Like it's really difficult to see if you look at a plant. It's like it's like a static object. But if you sort of watch a time lapse, you see like it's going all sorts of places. And I think that's kind of what we're in right now. It's like we're a little bit more in plant mode, which needs its surroundings even more, right? Like it's even more important that the plant's in the right environment, it's the right nutrition, it's in the right soil, and it is in the right sort of atmosphere, and therefore it will thrive. It's maybe a bit of more of a metaphorical explanation, but yeah, time is different.
Yeah, I think also nowadays we're sort of used to things happening very quick, but actually if you look at them, they really take a lot of time. And there's also like a big sort of, it's like certain trust you can give yourself, so you can take this amount of time to make something really good. So I think, yeah.
Marian, we had some great conversations with you. I know you always challenge. What's your take? What do you would say? Like, either how we change this, or I'm just curious on your take, because you're always straightforward about things.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I thought about it when I wrote the question. What my take would be. And I mean, hearing you guys talk is helpful in itself. But I think what I'm up against is scalability and mindsets and lifestyles they don't seem as compatible as they need to be, which is why we're in this situation. Right? Even a pandemic can't align the country. but at the same time, I feel like the receptivity for the lot, philosophy and the way, this decentralized living and and everything we're talking about, like, the opening is wider and wider for these types of technologies. And it's just, I'm pushing for a sort of, what are we aligning against to, like you said, like, what is that reason we're all here? What's that object, or how does that manifest? Like, that's a good question, but what is it that we can bring people into now that everybody's kind of open and isolated, or now that we're at this place where there is no institutional safety, or there's no ego to kill anymore at the scale that's never been seen before. So now it's almost like, again, like Matthias said, this environment that Bot is in, it is thriving, it is fueling our growth. And people are wearing all black without even knowing about that, and there's this, I think it's just the world is really ripe for leadership like Lot in a way. And it takes, I think, ego, and it takes some of the things that we may not strive for to take in to occupy that vacuum, but nonetheless, I think the vacuum is there. And I don't know, it's just, I'm just talking out my ass a little bit, but
this thought is genius about what to do when there's no ego to kill. It's actually a profound thought, because we're kind of right as people. We were waiting for the moment, and it's here. And what's next? And you mentioned scalability, and that's the reason why we decided to go to software and use this pandemic moment to kind of hold on physical for a little, because that trajectory only leads you to, no matter how hard you try, it only leads you to the old system. You have to build factory, hire people to do this cheap and have margin and all that stuff, and that by default is broken. And while we were doing this, it's obvious that it's broken. So something digital that unites us together, and you see during the past 3 months we start to build this, definitely feels like something we can scale. But the question is still there. What to do then there's no ego to kill? It's genius.
I think the last thing that I can add to this is that what I've seen in the last 3 months shift quite drastically is the sort of the tone of voice with conversations that I have, that all the people from support have had with the community, is that when there was products, it was sort of this sort of back and forth of checking in and like, are you okay with this, and how can we help, and we need updates on this, change of sizes here. It's sort of, was a lot of fun as well. But what I've noticed now is that there is almost like a different layer. The tone of voice changed. It becomes a little bit more personal. People are sort of letting their guard down a little bit more and sort of showing up and opening up. And perhaps that has to do because we also open up every day on YouTube. That's maybe a part. And that is something that you can't really, take and point your finger at, because it's not that tangible, but it actually is. I mean, the fact that we're all here together is sort of a proof of concept almost. You see what I mean?
Yeah, the emotional part is interesting. I mean, the products gave me a psychological comfort and this confidence and this way about moving around the world. And I'm wondering, what is the software equivalent of that? How do we kind of distribute well-being? And there's plenty of apps that make you meditate and all this rituals and things like that. It does feel like there's an opportunity for I don't know. Like, I feel like we're okay, but the world may not be. But so it's interesting. It's like, yeah, I'll go on to the next question.
I really like this point that Dwayne brought up in the chat of deprogramming, because I was doing a little bit of traveling this past week, and I came across this term. I was catching up with an old a high school friend, and he has 4 kids now, and just asked him how he raises his kids. And he lives in a city called Peculiar, Missouri, and his wife says that, and she's referring to their 4-year-old son, that she has him go through a program, and the formal term of this program is called unschooling. And so instead of homeschooling, we've now kind of advanced to this era of unschooling, where she literally asked the 4-year-old, what do you want to learn about? Like, she has no programming whatsoever. And I think this kind of a free fall space is perhaps something that we're deliberately moving into, so that this deprogramming or this unschooling can let us actually fall on what this feeling that we all feel really is. Thanks for the links, Dwayne.
Unschooling is really interesting. I like the term.
I don't know if anyone else has heard of it before, but it was the first time I'd ever heard of it, and it's kind of a crazy idea.
Yeah, it should be a thing. I mean, unschool, or I think unschool.
Yeah, like they have unschooling co-ops, unschooling programs that they attend, and it's just something I'd never come across before.
There's a lot of like outdoor education, this idea of revealing the truth for kids, and they know what's best to learn and things like that. And then at the same time, the structures that we operate in, like why are all of us rather black and brown and the doctors white? That kind of programming, I think, extends beyond the coding, so to speak, that parents can do and the school systems can do, but it still creates, at least in the US, it does have an impact. So I would push the unschooling and the programming even further. Like it's like an active deconstructing, you know, and destruction, creative destruction of systems that surround us. I do love kids, though. And I just bought a house in Augusta, like deep south, so I'm like out here.
Congrats.
It's very fun.
Kids is definitely the answer, and you know, it's another interesting subject of what we're trying to do here. One thing is to do it for us, so we have this like monk stoic experience where we unplug and we feel connected, but then we also have to think of the only way to say this is a new parenting. That's the only way.
That's beautiful, and like I don't know, I haven't heard that from you or anyone before, you know, and that kind of thing I think could actually invigorate and inspire others beyond our 40, 50 people writing room, you know, and that's I guess what I'm asking really is like how do we put the narrative into action, even if it's just by ideas and that kind of software.
Well, this is, right now, if you don't know it, this what's happening right now is tremendous help. This is moving this thing forward beyond. So, yeah, parenting is the key, and we have to change ourselves, prepare ourselves to raise kids and raise them not in the forest, so like we exercise, but somehow challenge existing world but give them all the confidence that their new vision, their new world is not worth it or even better.
Yeah, the same conversation that I had, it was interesting because I was saying that, you know what, I want to be a blank canvas. I want to be completely unprogrammed like a kid is when they're brought into this world. And the father of this little boy that was referred to earlier was like, no, actually, I think I'd like to take that idea even a step further, that kids come out programmed right. Like they have the program, but it's not blank, but they come out just completely programmed right. So I agree to that point that like the goal is also like how Orange is putting in the chat to basically completely reset the system, not by changing the old one, because that's already embedded too far to disentangle, but to always look to the kids as the setup for the new system.
What I see when I observe the kids right now, lockdown, less school, home working, is they have the least issue adapting to this madness around them right now. So in that sense, if we just pay more attention to how they are adapting to these sort of really fast changing times, yeah, I think that's really good. Like right now is a perfect case study of how the kids are doing it. It's sort of happening in front of our eyes. We sort of just have to observe what they're doing and perhaps maybe mimic it a little bit more. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would push if programming, repeating the steps. If humanity is the problem, I don't know. It's like, what if we're just
It's evolution. Evolution is the problem. Like we agreed with those decisions that made for us, and we just keep following them. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's evolution. I'd say it's inflexibility. I mean, the real benefit behind being a kid is adaptability. But like, I think as you get older, you become less and less adaptable. It's not necessarily the fact that kids are more are the thing to look for. It's the blind maybe blind trust in whatever is happening is going to be okay. It's like, you know that like nothing really can go wrong, and you just gotta go with the flow. I mean, kids learn to go with the flow from the very beginning, right? I mean, babies can swim, they toss them in the water, right? Like, what is that?
That assumes the environment is like a Garden of Eden, right? Like, yeah, sure, we were in a beautiful area, like it would be amazing to drink from the rivers, but it's full of shit now. So it's like, you can't drink.
Yeah.
I think that's where I get hooked up, because like we're already really deep into this, the container of all that programming, where you have to like program in some way. Right now, it's obviously capitalists like work, cages and shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's not. I just don't want to perpetuate the hands-off idealism that that might. That can go unchecked sometimes. Like, we can't just be hands-off and trust our natural instinct, which got us here at the end of the day and keeps us somewhere. I like the idea of lot being very artificial and programming being artificial too. I don't know, GMO and shit like that. Right?
It's like they speak the same language, right? It's like Lot is a machine trying to fight another machine. Like, it's not personal.
Let's knuckle up. Let's go. I'm so down. It's great.
Right, I'm moving to the next one. Next one is AppSec. Why still using dollars? Yeah, AppSec here.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we talked about it from a crypto.
Yeah.
That's what I meant?
Absolutely. No, not maybe exactly. But yeah, this is, I also heard a lot from Jeff, who talks about the crypto. I'm also working in the crypto, but not the currency. Like, the currency is, it's just a token, and you can also decentralize everything, like applications or algorithms, so-called smart contracts. So we're working on that, and there are already solutions for marketplaces, like totally decentralized marketplaces based on blockchain and technologies. We have some technologies as well. So, like, making this step towards using some, decentralized tokens instead of centralized tokens. So, any exchange. This is the trade. This is the market. We're making the products for us, and we're paying for that for the products. And at the same time, you're making appointments with suppliers. They're kind of trying to figure out the ways how to deal with all this stuff, and so on and so on. And if you're using dollars, you have just a massive amount of intermediaries, and each of those intermediaries, they are kind of having the fees and all the stuff, and it's just not something that will change completely after you switch, like after you switch to some cryptocurrency or something. But
this is the a switch in attitude when you go and try to use blockchain for different stuff that traditionally haven't been used, but that technologies you will see that it's completely changing your attitude completely. We're talking about the mindset, actually that's switching your mindset to something different. And we also have already talked about the adoption and early adoption. I think a lot of early adoptions are already here, and people in the chat were also saying that this DID, the decentralized identity, will come. We heard a lot about altcoin or WorldCoin, all that stuff. We created DID. We'll be launching actually the day after tomorrow, so it's July 1st. So I will give you the link, guys. But the thing is that I lost my line of mention.
The question is how you.
Yeah, I'm still using dollars because
why still using dollars?
you just go beyond that and try to adopt the algorithms. Then we take the critical mass of people, and then the world will change faster than it can be. It will change anyway. And in my opinion, all of these currencies will die, or maybe not the next 10 years, 20 years, or maybe not the next century, but eventually all of the money will just disappear, and the new version of money will appear. And for now, in my opinion, it's cryptocurrency, because it basically allows you to trade goods with anyone directly without any intermediaries. So that's the question. Why?
Do you think that there's application for love at this stage?
Sorry, come again.
Do you think there's application for love at this point, or a real application that we can use?
Absolutely.
Not for the gimmick, but for
You mean application that is already programmed that you can just take and use? All right, yeah, we have it. I'm working for the company that actually doing this stuff right now, and we are launching, as I said, July 1st, and it's all open source. You can use everything we have. It's wine teacher. I don't know if you care about that.
Please post it to the chat.
Yeah. So,
what you said about the critical mass, that there will be. I'm even thinking that that's on our micro scale. It's still the question when we feel that it's not hype anymore. It's a real need or a real utility.
It's a good question. Honestly, we are working more to business connections, and so people airlines or hotels can trade goods with their suppliers an easy way with the automatic settlement, with simple as just giving the link to another partner that you want to work with, and this partner automatically can trust you. It's kind of easy when you have a digital identity based on blockchain. It's totally new kind of packet or anything. You just have it always on the blockchain. But for now, it will take time. If I understood the question correctly, for the individuals to adopt all the stuff. But we also have the products for individuals that we are making also graphic interfaces to people, so they would not it's not a trivial task for a common user to go and create a crypto wallet with all the stuff to buy Ether or something, any tokens. It's just it's something hectic, something that is discomforting them, and then common users would not do that without a real reason to do that. So that will take time. Maybe, unfortunately, I don't know, but maybe it's for good. But mostly, I think that the adoption would be first coming from the businesses, and then from the individuals who will just join, because they will be, as Jeff mentioned, that it's not about you are saying, well, decentralization, wow, that's so cool. You just give them the benefits of it's zero fees for Dharma. he also mentioned Dharma.io. It's just, zero fees, and if you want to trade the fees, go on. It's not a problem, but here's the solution. You can do the same thing, with, you can send a transaction of $1 trillion, and it would be, just $1 fee. It's just, for businesses, it's super important. So as you're, it's an organization or company, I don't know how to actually call Plot, is it business or is it not a business? I don't know. The thing is that you trade goods with like many people and many other businesses, and so we can help with that as well.
That's prototype. I think that's the key, because especially with this modular system, there's a lot of, we even called it, forgive my not technical advancement, but we called it liquid pricing, where there's no price, where it's like fixed price. Back to the question why use builders. The idea was that you use those modules and you trust the system because it's so transparent that there's no like over fees, there's no margins, there's no price margins. Like even there's a margin, that there's a margin, and then you subscribe and you turn on and turn off those modules, and the price per month is always varied. It's always different. Like it's just sometimes we refund something, sometimes someone else sends you. Like it's always like we basically you don't have this $100 per month tag. You only have subscribe to lot or not subscribe to lot, or my lot is on or my lot is off. That's it. There's no price. That's the
yeah. I got it. It's sounds like a kind of a settlement, without between or any user and bot, just to settle. Like, okay, we trust each other. We can do like if we like we can decide for you what you have to have next month, right? And so you are totally okay with that amount of money, like we will charge you. But that's cool if it's transparent, if it's all transparent and you can trust each other. But it's just extremely hard to gain trust, as you mentioned as well, to gain trust with so many individuals at the same time. So for that reason, for that to actually happen, you need to have some faster way to do that. Like, I don't know.
Maybe it's even the conversation is about building that modular system with blockchain. How one party, with being the kind of lot, exchange value with module owner, because that's going to be the third party. So that's interesting, because now we're struggling with this. Is it some kind of contract? Is it just trust? But having some technology behind it, of course, is the key.
Yeah, the same thing with there are also this DAO concept of decentralized autonomous organization, when entire organization actually is, have full democracy over basically all of the things that happens in an organization. That's why it's not called company, because the company is always, about gaining some money. But the organization is is the way that the people connect with each other to, for the benefits of each other. It is hard, and it's detailed. Let's not, waste time right now from people. We have a lot of questions in there.
It's a good subject. It's just, Jeff talking about it, you talking about it, means that it's a very pressing thing. And us claiming that we want to do this right, missing the conversation of blockchain, let's put it this way, is like we need to definitely. But once again, I want to say that, as always, we're looking for someone passionate who will own this, because it's important to give it to people who don't. So let's talk behind the scenes.
I got your point.
Jeff and you, and see what we can prioritize. I think that's the first step.
Yeah, it's hard. You asked for a certain application, but it's hard to try to solve the problem if you don't know the problem. Like, I can only imagine the problems of as a business, as an organization, but we need to talk about that if you want to. I cannot just go and give you a solution because I don't know basically the details of the things. So, but I'm totally sure that there are lots of solutions, and the community behind blockchain community and open source community and people are doing so. They're just popping as mushrooms of the brain. It's like all of the work right now. I guess Charlie already mentioned that in the chat, and it's a lot of.
Oh, yeah, I agree about that. We actually receive a lot of emails from many people about the subject, and that's another reason why we're taking it very carefully, because we might receive email 1 mail per 2 weeks or something like that about, try this crypto, try this technology, and it's a hard question because if we do it, we have to make sure that it's going to work. And I would say this subject, little commercial. Every Monday, Andrei talked about behind the guts of lot, the software digital part. That's the best way, I would say, to initiate the conversation on Mondays. Right, Andrei?
Yeah. So I think our approach has been more utilitarian so far for this. So like, what is the best thing for our need in this particular situation, or architecture? So yeah, we're definitely looking into it, but it's more like what we need. What is the best thing we need?
Monday.
But let's talk about Monday.
Join Monday. Let's join.
Thanks.
Right. It's just a commercial. You go to the next one. So, Marcel, what's your thinking on sustainability? Getting beyond consumerism, which I think is goal of lot, is already pretty useful, but you also make physical products. Do you have plans to make it more sustainable? Would be cool to know that once you got full load, you also erase a lot of environment. Are you here, Marcel?
Yes, hello. Hi.
Also connects with the decentralization subject, but in the offline world.
Yes. Absolutely. First, I want to share this anecdote on the subject, which is it's sad anecdote, but I like it a lot. It's about t-shirt, and if you produce 100% cotton t-shirt, it feels that it's very sustainable because you make it from a clean, natural source. You then reuse it many times, and it's always good quality, stays in your skin and everything. It's nice. Then you use plastic like this. I don't know the word. This like sport wear, plastic wear. It's not. It feels like it's not sustainable because it's made out of plastic, and it feels wrong on the skin. But actually, in reality, cotton is extremely labor inefficient and maintenance inefficient, because washing cotton on industrial level or even on consumer level is extremely bad for the environment. You use a lot of chemicals and stuff. Whereas producing and maintain plastic clothes is very efficient, but no one wants to wear it. And that's always my answer to this question, because it's a dilemma. Sometimes I would take out food, and it's just like plastic and plastic and plastic, right? And then you go to grocery store and it's plastic and plastic and plastic, just for basic stuff. And then you will get lot and it's all paper. And for some reason, lot feels unsustainable, and that kind of grocery shopping feels sustainable still. So I'm thinking that question is on product level is not hard to solve, but to solve it on organizational level, on how to produce stuff, and that's extremely hard, because we have things centralized now, right? China, Asia. That's one of the reasons why we want to move to modular system, where every module is local based. So, for example, if you make coffee, we're not going to ship that coffee through. Coffee is not a good example. Let's say that coffee produced. We're not going to ship it all over the place. We're only going to use it where it's produced. If it's, say, some textile, like underwear, we want that module to be produced locally. Say Moscow, Los Angeles, in Berlin, and say Berlin makers, they serve all of Europe. Moscow makers, they serve all this Eastern Europe, and so on. So decentralization of manufacturing is the first step, because the moment that manufacturing is centralized, it's not just you put you play with labor, like it's not good practice by default, because they have different quality of life. But it also shipping, which is planes and oil and all the stuff. So I'm really thinking that it's hard to answer this scientifically. I'm only thinking it's such a cultural change in just way we consume. That's what I think. Short answer. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really a systemic problem, right? Like it's nothing that you can solve even if you're a company and you control the manufacturing. Like you don't have enough power to change it, right? So maybe in 20 years when everything is super decentralized, then there's a chance. But at this point, like I don't even know what to do, right? Like you're stuck.
Yeah, that's I guess why I'm rambling. Exactly, you're kind of stuck. You even if you add here, you kind of remove a lot of here, you make a full sustainable brand. Then this other very basic common good will not be sustainable anytime soon. So I'm thinking that the change in consumer behavior can help, and you have to rebrand it. It's not. It's almost like opposite. If you say you're not doing ethical, you're not doing sustainable, people almost want to make it against it. Like, okay, fuck it, But if you kind of brand it, cool, because it's like charity. Charity is not cool. That's why people don't really subscribe to it that much, because it's uncool basically, and it's always based on trauma and based on asking. It's not branded as a good. And I know it's kind of harsh to say that. Still, it's not branded as a goods. It's branded like something else, and you naturally just give it out of guilt or just something. So, to me, if speaking about lot, our goal is to change mentality about it. Even with uniform, there's another line where if I wear all black by myself, I'm crazy, nobody see me. If we all wear black, then all of us see us. And if all of us wear just one set of clothes, that's already change. But you have to make it cool. You can't ask people, okay, to make it more sustainable, wear one set of clothes, But you can only make it cool when they talk about it. So I really think that might be counterintuitive, but I always think that make it sustainable, just make it without talking about it. That's another thing to talk about. We changed it from paper to plastic, from plastic to paper once all the packaging, and it's still not enough, because, like with anything else, it goes deep into production, supply chain, and even if you fix supply chain, you still ship it with planes. It is a hard question.
Yeah, I like what Dwayne had added here at the very end. And this goes to your point, Bartek, about a change in a behavior. Because, at the end of the day, I feel like there is something missing when some company, Instagram company or brand just comes up and says, hey, we're doing all sustainable, no paper, toilet paper rolls. And you go to the life cycle assessment of things, which no one is going to talk about because they're only going to talk about the selling points, and it's a virtue to signal the selling points of sustainability. But then you go to research it and you find that it's more labor intensive, more resource intensive, more chemical runoff to do that one selling point of a virtue of no paper, toilet paper, than the actual mentality of what Dwayne added here, what the choice and the freedom to using things rather than to be rich and acquiring things. And I think that to me is something that I feel definitely for myself when I get packages from Lot where it's narrowed down to very select few items of things to where you realize, oh wait, I only need this and nothing more. And I think that personally I feel like is the right shift towards really changing the mindset of like, because I feel like the other programming, the other track is like, don't worry about continuing to buy a whole bunch of things that you don't need because we're just going to market it as sustainable, so you don't even have to think about it. And this level of awareness to be able to receive something and nothing more kind of directs the mentality to I think the right direction of what I feel sustainability, or the problem with sustainability really is this this decision to choose and decision to use what you are using, as opposed to just having it kind of come as a guilt-free infinite resource.
Marcel, the most efficient step is reduce, reuse, recycle, is reduce. I agree. With lot, once again, knowing all this stuff, and of course being aware of the problem, we send something that is made with less plastic, cheap to make, and fast to recycle. But the goal is to, that in a way, create another problem. More stuff, shipping more stuff, So there's making something recyclable and reusable is another hard problem, because then you stop innovation, and you can't, once you push a product, it stays there, and it's very hard to update it, and that's almost impossible during these times, because then you have to take a lot of time on development, which is hard. So it's a big question. Caroline sending an example of making charity cool. Axel saying not all businesses are evil. I agree, 100%. It's just trying to find the common kind of the middle ground.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Please keep challenging us and keep pushing, because that's definitely the number one subject. Otherwise, we all not going to make it.
There's no landscape for Ark to roll through.
Right, next one. Question from Nate. Hey, Nate, here. What is the biggest challenge that's keeping Lot from reaching its full potential?
Hey, how's it going out there?
Hey. What does Lot's final form look like? This is a question from the Baltimore. I will let answer someone. From my side, all I can say is that the biggest challenge that keeps Lot from reaching its full potential, personally, I always thought it's money. Now I think it's just confidence, faith that we're going to. To me, that's the biggest challenge, because from day one, that's great. That's normal. That's amazing. That we will challenge that. Is it real? Is it going to make it? And to me, the ultimate way to make it is just to have the ultimate faith. That's how you break it. Otherwise, it's impossible. And that's message to myself and to everyone. Just have the ultimate, stupid, cool-aid faith that is possible, and check each other along the way that are we doing the right thing, but don't change the faith. That's my answer. But
I think.
To hear from.
Yeah, I think to that point of faith, for me, I feel like the layer beneath that is, it's really hard to recognize this as something that, let's put this word in quote, works, because we're so used to adapting to things that have worked and have been working, and I think that's one of the biggest points to where I feel like a lot of people are interested in whether or not this will work, but kind of spectate from the sidelines, because it's like I'm saying personally, friends of mine spectate from the sidelines, kind of check in every once in a while, but don't jump feet first to actually participate in any kind of active sort of way, because they're scared of this thing that has really no precedent. And I feel like for me that's kind of the layer beneath that faith, is all of this large moving bodies, call it corporations or institutions, embedded into things that we use and kind of accept to be the norm. So the second part of that question, lots of final form, I think for me, I remember one time we had this conversation of glocal, basically this term meaning global being local, ties right back into one of the first points of decentralization. And I think that's what the world will look like more and more in the future, where you have villages again. I think the internet is a step towards that direction, in the sense that it shows the entire world that there is this global sense of community, but at the same time, you know, your neighbor feels so much closer that everyone feels this anxiety of, I mean, you go on Twitter and you feel it. It's like opening a bin of cockroaches and rats. But I think what the sentiment will move towards is more and more manageable, like personally manageable community, or let's say smaller villages, where you have your own manufacturing loop to produce the resources that a small community will have, but not independent to any one location, but rather a small community maybe on one end of the world will be producing and providing resources, tools, products, and services for something that another small community in another world will be using, and will also produce something that another community or village in another part of the world will be. So, yeah, that's how I feel the final form would be.
And I mean, one interesting thing I think about faith is one of the, I think like what he said, right? It's an unprecedented time where we get to see like no one knows what they're doing right now. So the playing field is equal, if not tipping towards the more, I'd say, indie, for lack of a better word, right? For the indie side, because like corporations don't know what's going to happen now, and so it's just, I feel like it's an amazing time to be questioning these things. And I mean, I've been like for years going crazy about off-grid living and like the post-city life. So I'm definitely like into that. And so I mean, if it's faith you seek, right? I think this is the time to have it, because a lot have like more experience navigating sort of this, I guess, online, remote, everyone's in a different place landscape than like many of the bigger guys. So I don't know, that's what I would say. And one note that I'd like to make, as far as in the previous conversations that you guys were talking about software versus hardware, is like, it's a little comment, but I feel like lots hardware muscle from a product design perspective is so strong, right? It always is, I think, that it sort of overpowers the software side a little bit. So I guess like one sort of feedback that I would personally have is like, how do we balance it? Like how does like, it's just, I feel like hardware was so overpoweringly amazing that software sort of so far hasn't really hit me like that yet, right? And I wonder how it can be taken to those heights, so that it's more like, there's also, everyone's doing software and it feels like the apps can be consumed much faster. And the way lots hardware worked, right, was like you couldn't just consume everything in one day. And I feel like it could be an interesting exercise to see how that could be transported into the digital space.
Andre, can you say something about
The maestro.
Maestro?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the entry barrier into software is much lower than into hardware, obviously, especially nowadays. And it's just so happened that a lot has been so strong, and then like the most hard area. So
Yeah.
That's really interesting. But I think like that's also the biggest question for us. Like how do we put all this into software now? How does it look like? And what is it actually? How does the software that helps you connect with yourself? How does it look like?
I mean, that's the challenge, right? That's I guess that's like the big question. But definitely, and I don't like, you know, I'm not a technical dude, so I don't mention software in a sense from the backend perspective, but I mean from like the Bible as well, right? Where the last hardware universe hits you so hard that you're like, oh my god, this is like a whole other planet, and like I've been yearning for that, and you know, like I feel like, yeah, that's my.
It's very cool you're saying this, because that's exactly what we are discussing between us.
Yeah.
Even this whole sense of, you know, we have to push update every week. No, there's some other software. You know, we're trying to find our own rhythm in, as you said, exactly like having those packages every month, curating exactly what goes in the package, creating the story behind every product. That's what makes hardware work. Besides hardware being high quality. So, to me, it's such a good point, and I'm glad we're talking about this with everyone. That how can we take the principles of law and apply them to software? You know, what are the principles of the design language? Because to me, an ideal, and actually to answer your final question, an ideal, the final form of law is that understanding of what it is that makes it so special. Whether we apply it to hardware, whether we apply it to software, we apply it to organization, the company, team, anything, compensation, crypto, what makes it so special, what principles are there that we have to identify and bring them everywhere. And I would only look beyond hardware, because I'm thinking that principles of how it was created, that's what we have to do. Not the actual, not the result of it, you know?
And I mean, look, like, Lot allowed me to have, you know, beyond the hardware, beyond the software, like amazing experiences, meet with amazing people, like. So I think your answer is very special, right? It's just, yeah, what makes it Lot, and I don't know. I think it's something that remains to be seen. But at the same time, like that feels like the right place for me to go. Is how do you keep it special, right? Without the because I feel like the world is ever changing, and lots gonna be evolving with that in what it is. But it's just I yearn for a little bit more. Is my general, I guess, point is, you know, I want to build a lot, like more than a playlist, a bit more than. It's just like those, you know, connecting with cool people has been like the best part of it. So even like this hangout was amazing.
Yes, I agree. This fidelity is everything. Yeah,
I agree. I agree for sure. Yeah.
We have to push and find those principles. Like, for example, even on practical level, brainstorm. So, what makes this hangout special, and what we can take from here, from this Google application, and bring it to LotSync, and something small that will help us to feel this, you know. And it's not simply to build like video chat or chat by itself, because we can use chat here. But what is the essence of this feeling that we can bring there, and it will feel special, so you will pay money for it and use it every day. Yeah, but it's all the questions.
Yeah. So actually, on that, do you have time to expand on that?
I'm thinking we only have 30 minutes left until the set, so and we have quite a few questions. So I'm thinking I would love to expand on this, but we have to move.
We're another day.
Is it 30 minutes or an hour? Because I think 12:30 was what I recall as the cutoff time.
Okay. 1 hour?
Yeah, we got 1 hour left.
Okay, yes, Jeff, please.
Cool. Yeah. So on the idea of like ways to create like connections between like the members and just people in general, right? Like I think it's just finding a way of like a really unified kind of mentality, just vibing in a certain way, and like I think having a sense of a way of discovering discovery without intent in a sense. Like, so I'm a Soho House member, been for Berlin most seasons. Kara looked up and said, yeah, I know, it's kind of, it's an interesting place, especially in Berlin, because it's got a really weird mix of people, but they, during COVID, they built this thing called Connect, where basically you just schedule a video call based on the time, and you just say, hey, what times you're available, and then they'll just basically like pair you with somebody random, and you have 30 minutes that's a dead cutoff to chat with somebody. So that was really interesting. Is that there's no prompts. There's just you. I think maybe it uses like tag-based interest matching to figure out somebody who might be interested in you've been chatting with. But it's just this kind of unknown. You're dropped into a chat and you have a timer at the bottom of the screen showing you, hey, this is it. And then after the session, you both have the option to like opt in to share each other's contact details, which is quite interesting. And even that, because like normally I haven't talked to any of the members of Soho House because I mean it is what it is. But I think that for ways of like discovering other members who have like-minded interests without like a directory to like contact people would be kind of interesting. And like, I mean, I pay $75 a month for Soho House because I'm like in Berlin and under 27, so like the Connect feature alone, just because it is this like randomized way of connecting with people in the community, I think is quite interesting and probably would be something worth paying for.
You also answered questions there, so we have some kind of special profile for you, and that can help. So you pair that with usage of products, which also personalized. And there's a way to find a way how to connect people together beyond romantic relationships, beyond work, just to really feel the energy of each other. You know, there's definitely something there. Because anything utility beyond that spiritual connection is available. So what we want to do is that you just feel not alone, or you feel like alone together. You feel good about being in this moment. Like you feel good about just being alone with yourself. These kind of things, because I think every we just discussed not every business is evil, but I really feel that a lot of things out there are escape drugs. They are made for you to fill that gap of you feeling lonely for a second, you're feeling afraid of this human existence, you know, like human experience. Why I'm doing it here? Why I'm doing this? I'm doing right? Those questions are usually filled with more push, press, click, you know, buy, and it works definitely. Like McDonald's works and Netflix works, but is there a place for a product that feels that, not with something else, but with yourself, like a book, or I mean, it's a very simple way to describe it, but that's the goal.
Yeah, I think Niall touches on something very interesting, which sort of adds to what you were just explaining now, Vadik, is the real change is the things I don't use, and then I think that's where sort of the gap fills, where the moment you realize you have all this space, like 2 years ago, when I started using a lot, I also started sort of getting rid of a lot of things, and then a year later I sort of looked at my apartment and I realized like I have less stuff, I have less things to worry about, but that's sort of, you know, the memory of what you used to have. But then what you have, looking at these new spaces that you have, is basically nothing. There's nothing in there, and to sort of make that tangible, the only thing to make that tangible is the realization that you have nothing. Like you can look at it two ways, like, oh, I don't have nothing, I have nothing, or you're like, yes, I have nothing. You see what I mean? Like it's this void that you sort of allowing yourself to sort of stare into.
Yeah, void by itself is a thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's maybe we should just make a meme so it's tangible. We can just send it to you if you feel lost.
I think it's something that we're just lacking in life nowadays, and also like why this app is probably so welcome, because it's very liberating, because there's no content that you need to have, or like a certain way to be there, because it's all just random connection. The app you mentioned, Joe.
Yes. Right.
Vladek, you're muted, but maybe we can move on to the next question.
So yeah, I don't want to take more time on this, but yeah, I think like the direction is definitely, you know, having a more social aspect of it is great. And also like the time is right for rethinking what social media is or how phones connect with each other. So like I know this can be a catalyst for like a 20-hour talk, so I'm not gonna drop that bomb, but just something to think about, right?
Absolutely. Thank you for your question. So I guess we'll move on to Andrei Karabanov. Is Andrei here?
Yep. Hello,
Hey,
guys. Nice
what's
to
up?
be here with
Nice
you.
to meet you. So your question goes, what emotion does the lot team feel the strongest? Vladek often speaks of lot as a uniform for war and battle, but I'm curious whether the rest of the team shares this sentiment. I'm also asking, I guess, how something with such peace and tranquility at heart, be still, can also harvest its energy from such deep collective trauma. And how do you manage this angst within such an intimate community? Wow, that's a big one. Let's see. I think personally the emotion that I feel is gratitude and excitement, honestly, at the end of the day. I say that mainly because I contrast that with things that I have worked on before and kind of realized represented values or principles that I didn't feel aligned with. And, you know, this iteration of what I do here is something that I feel I don't get anywhere else. So for me, the overarching emotion I would say is just a lot of gratitude, and beneath that is kind of excitement to continue to push to see what we can, where we can push this to. And you know, in that sense, it definitely is a war or a battle. I think to the points mentioned before, where there are just so many other accepted realities that people are, you know, don't think twice about considering whether or not that should continue to perpetuate. And so, you know, I think the word that someone used earlier was indie, and I feel like we kind of fit in that category of indie that makes it such that, you know, to push, you have to be excited. And so yeah, it definitely has that kind of facet to it of it being a battle. And I think the peace and tranquility of being still is really at the core of for myself, the core of how I feel this works for me. You know, you mentioned collective trauma. I think, you know, the trauma that I feel would be perhaps maybe the places where I mentioned before that I didn't feel like, you know, I was being used to the nature or capacity I would prefer to be. And I think when you find a community, where you find a place where you can kind of align yourself fully to what you output, I think that input and output alignment really makes you think twice about considering your actions and your impulses. So, you know, I think there's no paradox in my head as far as that's concerned. How do you manage?
First, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like I always feel that dichotomy in lot philosophy, like the general vibe, because on the one hand you have something like be still, but on the other always forward, and it clashes for me a little bit. And with Arc, like post-city paradigm is exciting, but it also, like, for me, strangely aligns with some prepper communities, like this crazy people that are like burrowing bunkers, like preparing for anti-social life.
Yeah.
Not for me personally, I like vibe a lot with lot, and it means to me a lot. But I can't help but feel that dichotomy. It's really interesting to me. How do you internally think about that?
Yeah, I think to the point of arc, I would say that kind of a line of thinking for me could only come from a place where you're absolutely still and sitting back and like Edward had mentioned in the chat, going across the street to look at something in its entirety, to see the whole picture. And for me, oftentimes people think the whole picture is, oh, well, we have houses, people want to move to cities, let's make nicer apartment buildings. And that's just such a tiny, tiny fragment, because they're unable to be still for a second and walk across the street and look at something in its entirety. To use this distance, this space of being quiet and listening to where the momentum is heading towards. And that's a good segue into this sentiment of always forward, because for me personally, I think the underlying why of where we're going needs to be predicated by the stillness that this distance and space will allow you to actually decide the direction that most aligns with the principles and the values that you actually want to put forth. And I love this bunker aesthetic that's been thrown around, because I feel like that is that's exactly the sentiment of stillness, but also absolute how do you say iron hard mentality of progress. I don't think bunker necessarily represents that, but like this symbol of I don't know, tranquility and a militant tranquility, I think is how I'd put it.
A word that comes to mind too is like embeddedness in the environment. I feel rings strongly to me.
Yeah, that is important. I was discussing a lot with some friends recently, and someone pointed out that oftentimes feels like a pacifistic death cult, because like it has this messaging like for the good death and so on, and like yeah, it's hard to love for me because yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Have you
sacrifice isn't like necessary like for the violence, like you're not sacrificing like your body to the society. It's the other dynamic emerges.
I feel like a crazy show recently that kind of for me captured this militant tranquility, or maybe even past militant, like violent tranquility, is Midnight Gospel, Duncan Trussell with it's just an insane, crazy aesthetic of gore and violence and cartoon characters' limbs being torn off and like put through chainsaws, and yet the core of its message is this ultimate death of the self. And I feel like more and more it's just something that, especially with this anxiety of the internet accessibility not necessarily constituting connection with people, I think we're going to feel this not just a desire, like a passive, but like a very violent desire towards this peace and this tranquility.
I would also add from my side, personally, that I feel like I agree with you, like totally, and I feel like this world is a totally war zone. But on the other hand, this team, Lot team, you guys, this is like the most peaceful place in the world, and that's the reason why it's so comfortable to be here, and why you are like confident with all the things we do. I think that's my like small answer.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
A last thing I'd like to add to this. I'm not familiar with the word dichotomy only from like literature, but I think it's like polar opposites, right? Like sort of
Yeah, sure.
clashing values.
Yeah.
I think that the message of be still and always forward in that sense is sort of like on purpose dichotomy, and within that tension lies sort of the essence of existence. I know this is like a whole bunch of spiritual words perhaps, but for me it really resonates strongly that like what Joe was saying, like with the craziness of the cartoon world sort of flashing by, if you're capable somehow of manifesting that stillness while still, living, going forward, then you sort of find yourself in a position where you can be very honest with yourself without, hurting yourself. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that's sort of top of my heart.
No, trying to hurt yourself is exactly the thing. It's almost like you don't want to hurt yourself, and that's fear leads you to more fear of its ultimate comfort, and you end up in this prison. Not even like say talk about job or system. You end up in this prison of you being afraid of jumping, moving to the next stage. And so we always wanted to create a place where you don't have to answer with your identity, look, design, whatever, clothes. You don't have to answer to self-care products to anyone. It's just you, and that allows you to actually hurt yourself, which is, as Edward said, collapse of the ego. And art is the place for you to collapse that ego. It's not to escape the, like we discussed with Jeff. It's not to escape the life here. It's just a safe place for you to die, but die as that social creature that was designed by them. We are not free. We're designed by them, which is acceptable, but that's not ultimate. And so we say the home is you, and art and your mind, first of all, is your ultimate home. But how many of us don't really have that home? Like I don't. For a long time, I didn't have home in my head. But to me, it still was first that don't look at them, what they do. Just chill. You are good by yourself. You don't have to answer them. And always forward, still move. Because be still is borderline depression. It's like be still, I don't know what to do. I'm done. I don't know how to develop myself. I don't know how to move forward. And so to me, be still is I don't talk, answer to them, but I still move forward. And if I'm not participating in their society, doesn't mean that I'm stuck. I think that's kind of the roundabout for me personally.
Yeah, sure. I think that for like some people it may like parse like detachment, like emotional detachment, and I felt that a lot too in like different times of my life. But it's a really interesting concept of like chasing this little death to become like this, to find this tranquility, which is, I think, it like shares a lot of narratives with like religions, like different religions, so for me, lot is definitely a cult of some kind, but like something I'm really it like lulls you in some way.
Because it's cult of
It's a cult of you.
It's a cult of you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. Nice thing to say, really. So yeah, and like my last question was probably about like not bad actors as such, like bad apples, like fuck this phrase, but like this messaging can really generate some angst and like some edginess. And it's fascinating to me how you guys throughout these years, I managed to like stay away from that, like be like really stoic in your like peaceful and like forward-thinking messaging.
Thank you for saying this. That's a lot of work, honestly, and it's a lot of work. That's all I can say. It's just collectively. There's no way to say this. In uplifting note, I just have to shout out to everyone to ever participate in the team, because that tranquility and peace definitely comes with a lot of sacrifice and journey. So, you know, obviously with money in life situations, but also just mindset. You have to be focused on this and say no to other things, although other things are very tempting, obviously.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for your work. You continue to inspire me on like the communities I'm in. So like thank you for your sacrifices and like real struggles. It's vibrating through the voice.
I didn't mean it this way, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
We definitely, once again, my own response to this, we can do this all day long, but without this energy, this meetup, it's all worthless. So you guys making it happen, that's the only way to think about it. It's not a catchphrase, it's the only way to think about it, because without you, it's just nothing. So you make it real. That's what it is. And that's goes to next question. Sasha A asking what inspires you to keep going. And honestly, that's the only thing that inspires is to you wake up, you think, well, I guess it's done, or well, I'm not sure if that's the right path. Then something, a note from a user, crazy conversation inside our internal team chats, another stream, and then something is always fuel, more fuel. So the only thing that inspires me personally is not design, not just this, that there are people out there that, as you said, vibing with us in the same frequency, and that's a big thing.
I guess it's a good segue into the next question from Sasha A. Sasha A here.
Yeah, Sasha. I just Sasha here. No, Sasha is absent. But yeah, just you guys what inspires us to keep going. And that's it. The next question from Maxim Marozov. Could you tell more about lot 0015 6, the necklace bracelet? That's what Niall is talking in the chat about, the same thing, same point. How do you manage to make it work? Also, do you think there's a place for jealousy? Imagine you are in an arc with a significant other and you feel a call from someone just in the middle. You answer it, and other person is jealous. So it's interesting. It's an interesting case. Hopefully, opposite would happen. You know. So,
I think if the significant other is jealous, there's some other problems at play there.
Maxim, are you here?
Yeah, hi.
Hi. So practical question, I typed it to Niall to answer. So with consumer electronics, there's only one problem, is that you have to have like critical mass to build it, because smaller circuit board gets, bigger user base you have to have. That's really it. You want to, if you want to make one unit, a prototype, it will be big. You want to make it smaller, small batch. You want to make it tiny, like ours, just a lot of people. So to me, that's number one thing. We need to have and we really don't want to build it, say, we build it and we sell it, right? We wanted to make it for a community. So to me, the moment community become big, then we drop the product only for you guys, not to sell it for outside world, because for outside world, it won't make any sense. So we need to grow before we can produce it. It's really not even a question of money that much, because you can find money to build it, but then to maintain a hardware product like this, you need people to use it. You need to set up a maintenance team just for that. There's a lot of work with battery, connectivity, and those things just require a lot of attention. And the problem with these things, usually, if you start doing this, you immediately put all your focus on that. So to me, until there's big user base, we really should not go there. We might build a prototype, and we actually talked between us, maybe we can build a software prototype, but where you can, we discussed it here, so it is possible.
How much big the user base should be for that?
I'm thinking that's a question with thousands of people. Thousands of people committed to the thing. And the question is, do you think there's possible for journalists? With all seriousness, we've been talking about ARC, that it's an ultimate test. If someone willing to go with you, your partner, significant other, is willing to go with you on the journey, that's a very special connection, because once again, it's about you rediscovering yourself and going through that moment of death and growth, and someone else, they either have to go through the same transition, or they should be able to support it fully. So
yeah. Why I was thinking about that is I see it as a strong connection, strong, not physical but emotional connection. Like I don't care what this person that there is a code from is doing right now. What do they feel right now? I just don't care. I connect with them, and my other half, my significant other, I have a physical connection. It's the other type of connection. I have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do together. We have a lot of things going on and stuff. But with the person on the other side, of the rock, I don't care, and this is interesting. That I was thinking about.
I see what you're saying. It's that it's almost, maybe if I may rephrase the question, what kind of connection is that?
Yeah. I don't know. And do I care about that? I don't know. I have to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
That's the experiment. It's such a hard question. Same goes back to that question about void. And are we really alone? Is it possible to find someone who will be with you? They say that you have to live with the feeling that you are by yourself, no matter what. Is it possible to build an artificial group of people that always there to show that they're always there, but nothing much? Would it really help you to feel better? It's all big questions. No answer.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a good question, then. Lindsay Pearl. Lindsay here. Is the political and social siege of Hong Kong by mainland China affecting them? Or is the situation in Hong Kong and China affecting love? Well, we only see it, business setup. They set up businesses, corporations, planes, and logistics. That it's not really, we don't feel it that much. But of course, just the understanding of the people in trouble, and we use their labor without acknowledging that they're in trouble, is not cool. But how many other countries like that in the world? How many other communities are like that in the world, where we use their labor, their goods, their energy without acknowledging how bad they are? So definitely affects, but on just human level, but we don't feel it on business level. Except that all flights are are frozen right now because of pandemic. Other than that, we don't feel it. It's a good question. Just a reminder that there are other people struggling for the freedom every day. Anton T, what is love community for you? And faults that follow a lot on social media. And with love music being on hold, what is the next tangible goal? Two questions. What I see here is what's the difference between this community and on social media? I'll just go quickly about this, if anything, this case. But my take on this is that what we're doing right now, making it public, even on YouTube right now, is almost like a commercial for this, so we can grow. Our goal is to have it internal. That's 100%. So social media, you can see we use it not actively. We're not using it to sell something or push some agenda. We use it to notify basically the same community that just follow it on different platforms, but we don't look or reach out for new users. Even in our strategy plan, we don't think about acquiring all people in the world. We're only thinking about our community that is already here, and we have to work with you guys and make product that you love and use every day, and then we'll think about it. So social media presence is just a necessity during these times, not more. And Andrea, maybe you can talk about music, about sound. I know it's built.
Yeah, you showed it, right? So it's there. So I think it's just a matter of logistics rather than building it or software architecture, and it still could be the next tangible product. I think like 100%. I think it's a matter of finding. It could be a matter of finding the right people to curate this module, as we discussed about decentralization, and people like different parts, different people managing modules. So yeah, I think it's there. It's very close.
Tangible product is coming, and that will be lot sound or other things that we're working on. We see it, we understand it, so one of the things that we're doing is that even when we build things, we really try hard to make them forever, no matter how it looks like from outside. So when we build lot sound, we build it so it's there. It's not dependent on anyone except the system is there, and we're looking for right owners to use the system. But the system is built, and that was our part of the equation. So the next part is find owners.
Yeah, it was also the first kind of, well, it was technically the second digital module, but it was sort of the first one in this new digital system of modules, because everything was designed for physical products before that, and now it's sort of a shift in architecture as well towards digital and physical modules, or mixed modules.
Yeah, but I think we still have some like smaller things to push soon on the digital part. So I don't want to spoil it right now. So stay tuned. And also, what I wanted to add.
No spoilers.
Yeah. Yeah, I forgot the second song. Okay.
Well, perhaps last thing to add, like, I mean, I know a lot of companies right now, for the last years, talk about this concept of community, but I've never found any company that, sort of puts that really to the test in terms of vulnerability and sort of, like last week I was doing a live stream and I sort of choked in terms of the things that I was doing, and sort of still having that safety net of knowing that people that I communicate towards are sort of there. So in that sense, I think community, we talked about this internally, is in itself a thing that is very tangible. So perhaps that's strange for, you guys sort of thinking about it, like, okay, so I'm part of the thing, but it's really like that. Like, I think, and that also touches on the question prior, like what keeps you going. For me, it's really opening up the computer in the morning and sort of seeing the conversations that are pouring in every week. And like I said, also prior, it's changing into this narrative that is not just, hey, where's my socks, or I can update my email, but it's changing into this, hey, this is on my mind. What do you think? Kind of narrative. And that for me is sort of evidence, like, okay, we're in the right path here. So this community keeping touch is the buzzword, but it's actually something that we're really building, and gets me excited to get out of bed in the morning, right? So that's my 2 cents on that question.
Next question, James Hicks. With LockOS becoming the focus again, is anything going to change this time to combat FOMO? I much prefer the single option. Original story format of Lock, where I know everything's going to be sensible, cadence, and you get all the new stuff. With OS, I ended up turning everything on but some items were overrepresented and some less hyped about the new modules down. So James is asking about the original setup of Lot was a prescription. Basically, everyone receive same package with slight modifications based on your preferences, but it's scripted with some kind of narrative, so you experience one after another. Whether modular system is scripted also, but it's more granular, where you can pick one of the themes, categories that you want, say self-care or kids or traveling or office, whatever, and how not to miss that original vibe. We're working on that. All I can say is that's a very fair question. That's absolutely right observation. And one thing we realize quickly, it was 3 years, is that scripted thing either turned into mystery box or it's not scalable. And mystery box becoming mystery box is not the right direction, because then it's not about utility, it's not about this idea that we're talking about, it's about surprise, it's about that excitement of Christmas, which is not necessarily the goal. And the goal is maybe even you know what's coming, maybe you completely aware what's coming, and it's not maybe coming once a month or coming every week, because if modular system OS is working, it comes from different locations, and once again, we want to glue this idea of you subscribe to that. You unlock or you not unlock. And even if you go to your profile page on OS, especially people from last summer, they remember there is no button to subscribe or unsubscribe. There's only on and off of the modules. And that creates the sense of dashboard, control panel, rather than, and it's still very limited, very creative. You can't choose pieces that go in, but you can choose the themes. So that was a necessary logistic move to allow scalability for this long term.
But it's also something that we're discussing internally a lot when thinking about software, like how to avoid this, like how to make this connectivity for community, avoiding this FOMO and comparison present in social media nowadays. So how should the software look like in order to avoid exactly this? So it's definitely something that's always there in our discussion.
That's a good point. How to make because software is also tangible thing, but it still feels like where's my update? Where's my update? You know, even with Apple, you wait for those iOS updates. How to make something that is don't give you that FOMO, right? It's it's a question. Igor, a very aggressive work culture. Is it inevitably a desire? I'm afraid that people will always understand blood in the boundaries of how it looks now, revolutionary, upbeat, slogans, unusual approach to business, and will not look at blood in a wider view. What will limit the universe entity, its nature, and the result, what will become locked in itself? It's a good question. I'll let someone else answer. Well, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that's also something you mentioned, Vadik, earlier, that this pandemic actually pushed everything in a way that it has to grow, what has to grow, in order not to become this and continue evolving.
Let's try this first question. A very aggressive work culture, is it inevitability or desire? And I guess the question is, I'm trying to understand. I guess the question is, let's put it in like simple terms. It's what is crazy and how we make it that everyone understands it and it actually grows instead of it staying just crazy. Let's put it this way. If I understood correctly, I don't know if you hear.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that is it correct?
Yeah. I mean, just the way you scale. We actually discussed this previous on Monday, I guess. The scaling and Apple, the way Apple have this feeling of being different, and we discussed slogans and stuff. Yeah. I mean that when you scale, are you afraid that the new people, when they come, they understand that, like, okay, these cool guys, they do these crazy things, but very rough, in a rough way, because you're not a global company right now. You have millions of workers working for you, and they understand you this way. Okay, that's not a problem from business side, I guess. But you're aware and how you get them to understand that when you scale, when you change, to keep the minds of people understanding the way you change, like a spirit of feeling.
I understand. When we grow in how to make. I guess if I again understood correctly, once we grow in how to make it organic, not to lose the vibe. Keep it the same. In the same time, it's impossible. Like, it's just impossible. You have to become nicer or different. I would say my answer would be that that's why we take it so much time at the beginning, right now. And I don't look at past 3 months even or past 3 years as something, because to me, and I'm sorry for saying this, but let's put a good 10 years into this, and like the foundation. And again, have faith that it will come on the right, with the right combination. So we just have to be very, very focused on the mission, because money might come as a distraction. Fame can come as distraction. Collaboration, like IKEA comes to us and say, let's do this, whatever. Like, things can come as distraction, and good life, unfortunately, is very addictive. So to me, it's important to keep this vibe of, no, this is the right way to do, no matter what, no matter the money, no matter who is coming with what kind of suggestion. This is the only way to do this, and it's a big responsibility for us or me to say that's the only way. That's the reason why we're doing it so openly, so we can do it together. That this conversation allow us, this transparency in conversation allow us to not lose faith in this, but also move slow. And moving slow, Andrea, you said it. The things look very fast from outside view, but then you really look at them, it actually take the same amount of time. Always, always. Every company will take the same amount of time. Every NBA team, sport team, Formula One team, whatever, actor, anything great that we enjoy, music takes a lot of time. But it feels like it happens overnight. So
in hindsight, it usually feels like it was all easy and very, very quick. But when you actually look at it, it's a different story. Yeah. And because it's also a lot of things that connect together. Like we tend to see, sometimes we look at the obvious things, like then they started here, but actually they started way before. Way before. Like when the mindset was forming, maybe it was really, really like a different time entirely that we don't take into account. Yeah, that's how I see it.
I would really recommend to watch this documentary if you haven't. General Nature movie.
Yeah. I haven't found it yet.
It's I said like it's a good description of it's a good documentary on how much time it took to build something like iPhone. And I said last Friday that, again, sorry for the reference about Apple, but Apple just 30 years ago rebranded itself as a machine for graphic designers. Very niche, very limited approach, and it scales to this ultimate utility. But if you really think about it, it's almost like they changed the society to use their product, not adapt their product for society, And I think that will take time. So we have to wait until, first of all, we have to be sure that what we're doing is correct. And that's the biggest dilemma and the biggest pain, of course. Are we right? Is it the right thing? But if we're right, then we just have to wait until other people will follow this. That's it. Yo, shout out to Lucas. It's right there.
I love the shirt.
Amazing. Either, how's that?
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, I think this movie is a great example of this. You can really see how it all started. And I think the movie doesn't capture all of this. I mean, it started even way before that. Crazy. And then you realize how much time and effort it really takes.
How much teams and people just went into that same one thing. So yeah, it will take a lot of time, a lot of effort. I really recognize and appreciate you for understanding that that's the biggest problem of not even scale this and make it out there, but to keep this vibe together.
Yeah. And that you said before, and that was I was shocked a little when you were showing these shots made by your design studio. You said that we were dying for that. And so okay, that's the point. That's the good word for that. When you keep humble, you're humble and keep doing that.
That's how conversations usually with everyone. Like, let's go another week. Like we go like that's just we have these calls every Wednesday, and the work we do is everyone talk between each other and work on things that they have to work. But Wednesday, this moment when we just like kind of hype each other, like no, just let's push it. So it's fun. I'm not complaining. It's amazing. We have just 15 minutes left, so I'm moving to the next question. Next question from Reed. Hi, Reed. Reed is our long time user supporter. Shout out to Reed. How different is the video chat versus the original Flash Hours meetup planned for this date? In other words, what did originally have planned for the meetup in London? Same thing, but in person. Yeah. And the idea was that, to see how many people will make it to the London location. And also there was idea to do this in Studio 3. Studio 3 is this logo on the card. It's this was the word, infamous location in Dalston, London, where a lot of original graphic design came from. And so the idea was to do it there as like another folklore piece that we end up just keeping the part.
Do you think it would be like what kind of turnout do you think you'd get in person for people physically showing up to one of them?
Physical meetups are the best, 100%, because that's really very special. Just people to see each other, and really the craziest sight. We experienced this in Moscow. I know that Andrei was there. I remember him. Andrei just asked the question. I remember that it's like hundreds of people wears black. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy sight. So I think that's what we see. But still, we all wear black anyway. So to me, it's very special.
Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you for remembering this. I wouldn't think that you do. Yeah, it was fantastic.
But that's cool. I remember us drinking.
Yeah.
Wait, are you saying that in Moscow you had a lot of
physical? We had a few in Los Angeles.
Okay.
We had one in Moscow. Matthias did one in Amsterdam. When we tried to do some other locations, that's really the best. Like you just see that there are other people like me, and everyone feels. Right, we have final question is from Anna H. How do you build uncorporated platforms? Not following one identity or shared sense of rules platform. Brand without identity. That's a good question. Who's going to take a job?
I think Anna's here. Yeah.
Brand
What's up?
without identity.
Yeah.
Do you mean by unincorporated platforms in the sense that they are inherently many different identities?
I think my question is actually quite similar to what Igor was asking beforehand. Is when it comes to scale and when it comes to a lot of people working behind that, or a lot of people participating in the whole platform, then how do you make it so it's still a body, but it's not a body in its identity or in its any kind of rules or ideology? Because obviously there's a lot of diversity.
Yeah, I think my answer would be the same. That it takes time to make sure that the values, the codes, and all the principles that we would like to be putting forth is there. Yeah, I think that would be the brand, and that would be the identity, where a whole bunch of different platforms can come under this umbrella of a code of ethics and operate with certain principles that you'll find a consistency throughout. So it's not just like a, how do you say it, umbrella corporation, but rather a multifarious group of people sharing the same values, same principles, and letting that be the identity.
Maybe I can add. Remember we talked about this. The ultimate brand is the story of this word, story, the narrative, and everything comes from everything is a token of that thing. So if the story is strong, then every product of that becomes a brand identity by itself, because it tells you that story, that on top. The whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a name. It's not a logo. It's not some utility like we sell this or we do this. Rather, it's why we do this. And then, if you have that in place, right, then it works, because then you build a design product and you only ask this question. And the question is it on brand? And is it on brand, does it tell that story? Does it contribute to answer that question that we're trying to solve? If no, then, and it sounds very abstract, but there are a lot of examples out there. Say Muji, right? Is that where you can't pinpoint one product. You can only say the whole thing. I like the whole. I remember the vibe in the store. I remember the feeling of the pencil. I remember the gift I bought in airport. Every single experience tells you one that story that you can't really pinpoint. I mean, once again, Apple is a great example of that, where the idea, especially early, think different, was the mantra, and every product is supposed to answer that. If it's not answered that, then it's not on board. That's if I'm.
Yeah, another example would be the Bauhaus, right? Within people who are obsessed with design, there is this school of thought that is no longer. I mean, people like Walter Gropius are long gone, and yet people still adhere to certain values and principles that articulate the story that was being put forth by the Bauhaus, whether it be dance and costumes or buildings or even schooling. So I think, again, to echo Vadik, largely the dictating kind of identity would be the value of story. We have 8 minutes left. Yeah, 8 minutes if there's any remaining questions or comments.
Thank you all for joining. Really, I see familiar faces from long time ago, and it just really makes it real. So, thank you so much everyone for being here and taking your time and pushing this forward and having this amazing energy. It's just crazy. We're actually going to make it.
Shout out energy.
David, say hi. You've been with us. I really think that you're the first user. It's my as far as I know. David Chain is here from Dallas, if I remember. All right, hi David. Anyway, hi to everyone. Thank you everyone for pushing this. Thank you, team. A lot of work. Shout out to Larry for organizing this. Shout out to Matthias for working on communications, make sure that it's all reached the audience. And a lot of work ahead, and let's drink and listen to Oblast. It's coming. We will post the link here, so let's keep this chat on just for to vibe out. We'll post the link here, but basically go to our Twitch channel. It starts soon. Does anyone have to say anything? Matthias and Jay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I think it's good to repeat.
The link's in the chat, just in case anyone wanted to follow it.
Shout out to Alexei from Oblast for organizing the sound program for us. Have a great morning, evening, and don't forget to it's not a commercial. Join our YouTube channel to watch the streams. We talk a lot, there's chat there, and we will definitely pick this one because seeing you guys is really next level.
This was nice.
Peace, everyone.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Hopefully more to come soon. This was amazing.
Thank you guys. Hopefully in a year we could like drink together somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, really nice. Until then, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all the questions, all the participants, everyone. It's amazing. Not enough thank yous. Bye bye.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.